Hey, I'm Susie Hickson, and you're watching Shopkeeper TV.
I'd like to do this a little bit of practical thing with you, if you don't mind. I'll share my screen again. There's the my browser. Okay, so I was just wanted to look at things as if I am starting a new brand. And when I was searching for names for my private label brand, it was so difficult to come up with anything. I think there is this company, Brand Bucket. Brand Bucket, maybe something like that allows you to sort of gives already predetermined ideas. So you just put in like apparel, I guess. I'm just gonna put that in, and it will give me some ideas of names and logos, so I could be whatever is already available with the domain name and not. So I guess when I was personally looking for something, so I did this. Let's see. I did like that. Okay, so Prada. Then I changed. Okay, so Praha. Okay, and then I changed this Faha, and I just tried to invent all kinds of versions, and it just didn't really work for me because half the domain names were taken, and it took me forever to come up with anything. All I would come up with is usually some English words that you combine together, and that is normally too long of a nice name, right? Mm-hmm. So now let's say I went through that whole process. Now you as a lawyer for trademarks, you said you do this little bit of swooping around the USPTO website and checking whether it's going to work for me or not. So would you mind maybe sharing your screen and showing me, like, what do I do next? Let's say I already settled myself on this, oldglam.com.
Old Glam. We're going to go with Old Glam.
Right. Just because it was there. So could you take over? What do you do next?
So first of all, let me talk about this Brand Bucket. Okay. This is I've actually come across this company before. Okay. And this is an interesting thing they're doing. I mean, the entrepreneurialism here is impressive. I'm going to tell you, I like it. I like this concept. I like the idea of using Brand Bucket to help generate ideas, right? To tickle your brain, right? To kind of like get you thinking. I think it's really cool from that perspective. One concern I have with that is that a lot of those terms that they were throwing out, I would consider them coined, C-O-I-N-E-D, or fanciful. And that means that they're just made up words. Like you wouldn't find them in a dictionary. Mm-hmm. I keep pointing back here because I've got loads of I'm a big book nerd, and I've got loads of
I've read that words. Building a story brand.
Yeah. It's such a great book.
The key book, yeah.
But so these coin terms are I want people to be careful with these because I'm seeing voice-enabled searching being a more important thing. I use the word thing when I can't come up with the right word. I see voice-enabled searching becoming more and more important. Siri, Alexa, all of these. And you want people to be able to easily pronounce your brand name, to be able to search for you, right? Old Glam, that's good. That's okay, right? We can search that one. But there were some on there, I was like, how do you even pronounce that? Right. You do not want your consumer to be confused about how to pronounce your trademark. I think that
there was let's look at some of those. Okay. Yeah. Coyote. I guess if I'm on your podcast, I'll be saying, and visit me at coyote.com, and I'll have to spell it next.
Right? That's an issue. Because let's say that what if I have on a shirt, it's really cute, and you say, Susie, that is the cutest shirt. What brand is that shirt? I'm like, it's Coyote. So
right.
You're going to go search for the traditional term. If you're doing you're searching on your keyboard. If you're searching on Alexa, that term is not going to pop up. The traditional spelling of the word will pop up. So that brings me sort of to another issue here is watch out for those coined marks, because you want trademarks that are easily pronounceable, because you want people to be able to share them. I also kind of discourage people from using cute and clever misspellings for this very reason, right? Because people aren't going to think, well, I'm going to search Kioteetee, right? They're going to search the traditional spelling. I also, and I'm going to share, I'll get my computer here ready to share my screen. I think that people need to be very careful about getting too hung up on domain names. Okay. And you mentioned this, okay? And the reason I'm bringing it up is because you mentioned the domain name. And I've seen people kind of gloss over what I thought would be a really awesome trademark because they couldn't get the pure domain name, right? The pure URL. And I always tell people, like, I think it's important to look up domain names. I think it's really important to see if and how your possible trademark could be used as a domain name right now, because it could give you a little bit of insight into whether or not a conflict is out there. But if you cannot get the pure domain name and the trademark is awesome, like, don't worry about it. Like, use a slightly different domain name, like I love and then the brand name, or go and then the brand name. Facebook wasn't Facebook, it was the Facebook. So, and then as your brand grows, and if you ultimately want to spend $20,000 or whatever it is on the pure domain name later on, do that. But I don't like seeing people pass up awesome trademarks because they're so dependent on that domain name. It's getting super hard to get pure domain names. You know this. So
yeah, it's quite popular to use like .io at the end, or all these modern ones, .agency and things like that. So they're pretty cool as well. I find it's nice. And then once you have $100,000 to acquire the big one, you can do it, or buy the company.
Once you're Facebook, you can just, buy the whole company. There you go. I like
that's right. Just buy the company. Yeah.
I like that attitude. So would you like me to share my screen really quick?
Yes, could you?
Thank you.
I want to see how this works. That swooping.
It's my super sleuthing.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. So usually what I'll do is I will start out with a couple of different platforms that I am not affiliated with at all, but they're pretty good. And one is called Noem. Okay. And I like this website because it helps me search across different social media platforms. And
okay.
This is, and you can learn a lot by looking at social media handles, right? Like, maybe, you can maybe dig in and find out that someone is already using Old Glam on Twitter. And what can we learn about that? If we see that someone is, we will want to dig into that a little bit more. I love that we're using Old Glam.
Just hit my eye.
It's the most ridiculous. It's like Old Navy for old people.
That's right.
So look, so this is interesting. Old Glam is being used on Facebook, LinkedIn, Tumblr, Pinterest, and where there's Twitter. It's not so I want to know, like, what is going on over here on Twitter, like with Old Glam. Can you still see this, Paulina?
Yes, I see.
Okay. So I'm going to put Old Glam into the tag or the little handle here and see what's going on.
All right.
Now, this is usually what you'll find out, right? Like, you'll usually look and be like, okay, what's going on here?
0 followers.
There's nothing going on with this person. Now, one thing you're going to want to think about, if this is the mark that you want to use, okay, how am I going to be able to get this trademark or this handle from Lynette? It's possible. I've done this before. Like, I basically worked with brand owners to go into Twitter and get that domain name, or not the domain name, but the handle. So, especially in situations where, look at this, like this person hasn't posted anything, right? This is August 2019. We're not really learning a lot here. One thing that we can kind of learn from deductive reasoning is that, you know, if there is an old glam out there being used for apparel, they would probably have this handle. So that gives us a little more confidence in it. So let's go back and look here. Another thing that I like to look at would be, of course, the domain names, right? Okay, so this one's for sale. Let's see what's going on here. I don't know what's going on here. I use GoDaddy, right? I don't even know
Yeah, me too. Yeah, this is the best. Plus, it gives you evaluation of the website if it's taken, and the evaluation is pretty low. Then you could reach out, and you know.
Exactly. So we'll do a quick search here. It's taken, but you can get this one for $90.
Right.
But here's the deal: you could, you know, if you're like, well, one thing you could do is you could look at who is. You could figure out who this. You could learn a little more, right? Okay. Well, let's see if we can figure out who actually owns this. I'm looking for the registrant. Okay, so they're using like a domain by proxy, right? So we'd have to dig a little bit more to figure out who it is. But someone's probably just sitting on it, right? Someone's probably just sitting on this domain name, hanging out, waiting for someone like Paulina to come around and offer $10,000 for it.
Right.
But, you know, if you love old glam and you don't feel like spending $10,000, you could go get aged glam. Just kidding. You could go get
oldglam.shop. Oh, I like that one.
There you go. oldglamshop.com or .shop. Or you could
right.
You could look into like you could do like I love what the heck, I can't type. I love old glam. Okay? And then one of these days, when you're super successful, and I mean, look right there, $5.
Right.
So one of these days, when you have $10,000 to figure out, okay, who actually owns oldglam.com, you can reach out and, you know, try to get that domain name. So that's, you know, just a few things that you can learn. So I'd like to know what's going on over here with YouTube. Like, who is using YouTube in old glam? I don't know if it works this way. No, that doesn't. But I could just do a quick search. But I think it's
/C and then /old glam. I think for channels, something like that. I guess it doesn't exist.
Well, that's interesting. Yeah, it says this channel doesn't exist.
Maybe there's a user with that name. Yeah.
Is that how that works? There could be a user with that name.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's look right here.
If they claimed that. Old and Glam official. There is something.
Old and Glam. Now this is interesting
because
sorry.
All right.
So let's say that I don't know what this company is, but let's say that
it's a music band looks like.
It's a glam band or whatever. Or, yeah. But let's say, I'm going to give an example here just to kind of get people thinking. If this trademark, if this old and glam, let's say that they were an apparel company, okay? And you wanted to use the mark old glam for apparel. And
that's a problem, right?
It would be a problem. It would be, I'd say, Paulina, new mark. Let's start from the drawing board and go back. And you know, that's just some of the research that can kind of go into using a platform like Noam and searching, right? Looking at these domain names and looking at the different social media handles. Now, another thing I want people to think about too, when they're searching, is to check a company called NameCheck. This company or this platform is very similar to Noam. it's set up just a little bit differently, but you can use it to get a lot of the same information. I like to kind of cross-check them, right? Because you can't always 100% rely on this information that's popping up. So we can just do a quick search here, Old Glam, which is, I think, my favorite new trademark. And
maybe I'll use this one.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, so we can look down here at some of the usernames. Now, interestingly, see, it's saying here that this one is available.
Wait, I just realized who owns oldglam.com. Brand Bucket. Right. They own it.
So here's the deal. I got to be cautious about saying this, but I would be really careful about, they don't just own names. Like, you can't just own a name. Like, you have to have a trademark associated with it, right? Like, there has to be goodwill associated with it. You can't just kind of like hijack a name and expect someone to pay you $3,000 for it. That's not how that works. So, like, yeah. Oh, and that's actually really funny that they own the domain name, which makes sense, right? Like, that makes sense. If they're going out and kind of creating these names, then they're going to want to grab the domain name.
Right. That
might be the thing of value they're actually selling to you, because they can't just sell like a word or something that doesn't have goodwill associated with it. But that's really interesting. So another thing is to look at, like I said, would be name check, just to kind of cross check. Mm-hmm. And of course, I would recommend looking at the USPTO website. It's uspto.gov, and you would go to trademarks. Here on the right, you have a drop down, and the very first one, test, that's your search platform. It's very clunky, but I generally use this one right here, the basic one. Like, I'm a new user. I've been using it for about 15 years, and I still haven't graduated to the other one. But we would want to put in Old Glam like this. No results. I don't think that, because it didn't come up as two separate words, I don't think it would come up as a single term, right? But just to make sure things are working, we put in like Old Navy. So yeah, so you can see here Old Navy has several, well, I guess 109 trademarks.
What about this Old N Glam? Could we look up that one? Old, yeah, band one.
Nothing's coming up for Old Glam. Now, remember our human limitations. Okay, let's say that Old and Glam really existed, right? Like, let's just say that company had it, or let's just say that let's just do a quick search for them. I don't think that we're going to find anything. Where did mine? There we go. Nothing. But my point here is that you really need to think about searching these different iterations. What about Old Glamorous, right?
Oh, so it's not like partial words, it's like just the word.
Right. Oh. Right. Nothing came up though, but that's something to think about, that you would need to look at those different variations of the trademark. I can't even, Old and glamour. How do you spell glamour? O-R? Why can I not think about how to spell glamour?
I'm like Lithuanian first, and my English is like the third one I speak. So yeah.
Your English is probably better than my English. I went to public school systems in the U.S., okay? So your English is probably better. So,
dictionaries. Right.
But, when you're doing your searching for your trademark and you're, doing kind of your own knockout search, like, try to think about what those different variations could be, because those variations could definitely be an impediment to your registration if they exist. So always keep that in mind. Now, the cool thing about using a company like CompuMark, and here's the website, a fantastic company. I've used them for years. You can do your screening searches, your actual searching. Here you can do your full search, which would be a comprehensive search. And again, that's that outsourced platform that uses software that can really search across a lot of different platforms and also a lot of different variations of spellings. So I just think that taking that extra step is really important in doing the searching. But the problem with this is that an outsourced search to CompuMark will run between $600 and $800, right?
Right.
So a lot of times people are like, I'll just file it and see if I can get it registered, especially if they're doing it on their own. Because, you know, if you're going to do your application on your own, it's $275, your filing fee. So, you know, and a lot of people are like, well, I'm still trying to gear up. You know, I might not even be using this trademark for another 3 to 4 months. So it's sort of, I kind of get that. I get not wanting to pay, you know, the $600, $700, $800 for search through CompuMark if there's no big rush with the current registration or the current trademark for registration. So, you know, there's some strategy involved in determining whether or not paying those fees really makes sense. And I do try to take like a really realistic approach with clients. Like if they're like, well, I'm not going to be using this mark for another 6 months anyway. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, let's just file it. Like, let's just see if we, you know, let's see what happens, you know, because it makes more financial sense, I think. So, you know, there's always those little considerations that people need to think about.
Okay. So I like this. And you didn't change any preset defaults here, right? So we are looking for live and dead. And
yeah.
For the confusing things, anything to know about them?
Yeah. So, like, let's say that we were interested in, let's just say as an example, that we had a mark that we wanted to use Old Navy for a totally different product. Let's say that we rolled out some cigars, right? And we're kind of curious to see what all Old Navy is using.
Okay.
So your live marks are marks that are either registered or pending. Okay. Dead marks are marks that are abandoned or they've been canceled. So dead marks will not be used as a basis for refusal for your trademark. With that said, sometimes there's good information to learn from a dead trademark. For example, why is it dead? We might need to figure out, well, why is this mark dead? Is it because it got an office action? They didn't respond? Did they get a refusal based on a likelihood of confusion? What can we learn about that refusal? What can we learn about the other party in terms of whether or not they fought the refusal? So there's always like a lot of like information that can be found, like if you're kind of into like digging into this stuff and doing the research. Okay. But I'm just going to give this example. So let's say that we want to see what Old Navy has owned. So we're going to submit this query, and you can see here that they have a lot of marks here. Oh, Old Navy, San Francisco, California. That's interesting that they filed for one, but now it's dead. So I don't know. I find this kind of interesting. I can open a new link. Again, this is the USPTO website. Oh, okay. So, they filed for jewelry and watches. Now, the TSDR is a document retrieval platform. And it's a lot of the same information and slightly positioned differently. But here you can go and you can find out, you can look at what's called the prosecution history under the documents. And you can take a look and figure out, well, why did this application go abandoned? Like what happened? So I can see here that they filed extension after extension after extension to try to show that the mark was in use, because in the United States, before you can get the registration, you have to ultimately show that the mark is being used. So it's a weird catch-22. But what can I glean from this? That Old Navy never started using this particular trademark, Old Navy, San Francisco, California, for jewelry and watches. So they ultimately just let the trademark application go abandoned. Now, a lot of times, Paulina, like this information, a lot of times we don't care about dead marks. You know, maybe maybe we know that there are a ton of trademarks out there for a particular company, but we're just not worried about their dead marks. You would just go over here, search live, submit the query, and then here is a little bit like tighter list of trademarks. So that gives us some pretty good information.
So did you say dead could be also that they haven't filed it, but also it could be an expired one? Didn't you say they don't expire, or they do expire, right?
So a trademark will become dead if they don't file the appropriate maintenance documents. So yes, even though, they never expire, and I should have given a caveat, so I apologize for that, but they don't expire as long as you continue to use the trademark and as long as you continue to file the appropriate maintenance documents with the USPTO. And those maintenance documents are needed to maintain the registration. So as an example, let's go back and look at one of these older marks. This one was registered in 2014, and I'm going to see if they filed their maintenance documents. So here's the deal with this mark right here. This mark is registered by Old Navy, obviously. And you can see here that they must file what's called their Section 8 affidavit of use. And that affidavit must be filed between the 5th and 6th year after registration. And then after that, affidavits must be filed between the 9th and 10th year after registration. So this can get a little weird and hairy, and unless you have like a Google Calendar, you know what I mean? I have a Google Calendar, so I can calendar things out like a long way out. But that's why sometimes it's good to have an attorney, right? To have this information on their docket. Like all of my clients, like I know when these deadlines are coming up, and I email them and say, hey, we need to file Section 8 affidavit. This is what this means. These are our deadlines. These are our fees. This is what is needed to maintain your registration. If you don't do that, your mark will die. Your registration will die. It'll be considered a dead registration. You'll still be able to.
Is there a way for me to look up and use this information? Like I would look up which one is gonna die soon, and that's the one I would hope for. Can I do that?
You could. Yeah, you could do that. I do this. I do a lot of investigation on the USPTO website to kind of learn and help strategize for my clients. For example, if my client has a trademark that's been refused based on a likelihood of confusion with a prior registered mark, but I see that they haven't filed their maintenance documents yet, I might say to the client, hey, I think this mark is going to die.
Okay.
And therefore, I don't think it's going to be an issue at the end of the day. So instead of spending 3 to 5 hours on me preparing an argument, let's take a wait and see approach and see if this other company fails to file their maintenance documents. Because if they fail to file them, then the mark becomes dead and it's no longer an obstacle to my client's registration. Does that help? Is that kind of clear?
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna do with this shopkeep,
Yeah. So
I'll go and look it up.
So go to uspto.gov, go to trademarks, and let me just tell you this. So you can go to TSDR to check your status.
Okay.
And then you should know your application number. Just put your application number right here, and you can check the status, and you can check the documents. So all of this information, and that's another thing I want people to kind of be aware of, is everything filed with the USPTO is public knowledge. So if you have a trademark that's scandalous, if it has a bad word in it, right? The U.S. is so puritanical, right? Like bad words are,
Yeah.
But now the USPTO can no longer refuse applications based on them being scandalous. So that's kind of cool. Like, yay for the First Amendment. So, but like, let's say that you don't want your name like associated with it, right? Because you don't want your mom to find out.
Right.
That's how I am. Like, I'm old, and I'm like, I wouldn't want my mom to know that I filed for a scandalous trademark. But yeah, so just keep that in mind that everything's public. It's all public information. Let me think of someone that I've worked on. Let me think of a client that I could put in here. I would need to pull up their domain or their application number to give an example. But I'm happy to give this example if we have a few minutes.
Sure. What about mine? Wait, I can look it up, maybe?
Yeah, you can look it up, or I can look it up for you, and I'm happy to. I just didn't want to if you didn't want me to.
Okay, just a sec. I'll just look.
Okay.
You may hear some background sound. That is evening prayer going on. Every Muslim country has 5 times a day the prayer in the speakers. Alex. All right, Alex is my trademark attorney. So when she said there was an update, she usually attaches a document, and in there I see application number. Okay, so I have it here.
Okay, do you want me to put it in?
Yeah, so I'll tell you it. Okay. It's very short. 881-04935.
Okay. So I'm going to walk you through this and tell you a little bit, just kind of describe to people who are listening or watching what's going on here. And I'll keep in mind that this could also be just audio. The first thing you'll see is your trademark, right? And then there's your application number. Here's the date that you filed it. It says right here that the application was abandoned. So that the big red circle, like that's sort of like you're like, boom. You see that obviously like, okay, it's abandoned.
I gave up on it, basically.
You gave up on it. Yeah. But if you want to go back and look at documents, you can go to documents and you can see here when it was filed. You can see here the office action. You can review all of that. And I like for my clients, here's the deal. I like for my clients to be aware of this, but I don't necessarily like for them to be hitting the refresh button like every day to check the status of their application.
Okay.
Because that's like they've hired me for a reason, right? Like I have everything on my docket to know when it makes sense to check a status. But I'm telling you, I've got clients, I swear they're like they're doing refresh, as soon as it gets registered, they're like, my mark is registered. Why have I've not heard from you,
Okay.
It registered yesterday. Like I don't even have an examination. I don't have the registration certificate yet. So it's kind of hilarious, but yeah, you can access this, and you can just use these little drop downs right here and take a look at all of your information. That's your services that you filed with it. It was filed on, I guess, a use basis. It was first used on August 2018. Here's your attorney information, prosecution history. That prosecution history is actually pretty much here. Like if you want to look at it. So you could open up the notice of abandonment and see when that actually came through, July this 22nd. So here's the deal. Again, all of this is public information. If you are ever in a situation where you assign a trademark, and we talked about this a minute ago, again, it's an asset. If you assign the trademark, oftentimes there's going to be some type of agreement that goes with that assignment, like maybe a sale of the entire company. So keep that in mind. If you're ever filing anything with the USPTO, you only would want to file that specific assignment document and not that entire agreement, right? Because there could be confidential information there. I just think that's important for people to really think about when they're using it, because a lot of people are kind of caught by surprise when I'm like, they're like, I don't want my name to be associated with the trademark. And I'm like, that's the function of a trademark. Like your trademark is a source indicator. Like people have to know the source of the trademark. Otherwise there's no point in having the trademark. You can't have a registration that's anonymous, right?
Right.
You should have thought about that before you try to file, a dirty word or a scandalous trademark.
Because right away, my mind is thinking all these bad things. Like, okay, my competitor's name is this. If I would somehow find out his his information here from that name, I could know his address. Now, once I
So
know his address, now I can go to all, like.
and that's one thing that I do sometimes, like if I have a client that maybe has a demand letter from, or has gotten had an issue on Amazon, like an infringement report, like I'll just go straight to here. I'll go straight to here, find out who their lawyer is, and just reach out to their lawyer. Like I don't really deal with Amazon because you can find a lawyer, right? Like you can see who that person is that's handling the case. You know, I've had situations where I've reached out to the lawyer and the lawyer's like, we never sent that demand. Like we never did that notice of infringement. Like we didn't do that. That was just some third party seller. So you want to go directly to the attorney if you can.
Right, there's there. Alex. Yeah, that's my attorney.
So there you have their information. So all of this is public and you can learn a lot of good stuff. And another thing too, and I'll, before we go, one thing I want to mention is that you can search back here on basic word search. You can go right here to field and search the owner name. Okay. I don't always have great results. Let me see if I can find myself. Oh, there I am.
Ooh, all right.
Yeah. So here are my trademarks. I have this trademark.
That is so scary. Don't show anymore now. My heart just like, ding, ding, ding. Don't search my name. Yeah. All right.
Don't worry. We're going to find out those scandalous trademarks.
Right.
So I filed these marks a long time ago. They're dead now. And these are my new ones. Mm. But same thing, you could go here and find out all kinds of information about me.
These are some bad tools. All this public information makes it very sensitive.
It's a little scary, right? Like you would think it would be a little more private, but right. I like people to keep that in mind. Like if you have a mark that you're filing for and your underlying goods are sex toys, that information is going to be on there, Now, one thing you can do so your mom doesn't find out is that makes it harder for her to stalk you would be of course this is my name, but you could have an LLC formed, mm-hmm. right? And I think you have that. You have an LLC.
Yeah, the Canadian version.
Yeah, and then people would have to go search that LLC for the filing documents, and that's it's getting kind of extreme, right? When people go to that point where they're actually searching, your articles of incorporation, they're really trying to find you. But most of my clients, they have an LLC, right? So their name isn't right here. Mm-hmm. It's their business name. And generally, I tell people file, if you can, in the name of your business. Because, again, it's an asset that you want your business to own. And if anything happens where someone gets injured by your product that has your trademark on it, you want any liability to inure to your business and not you as an individual. So.
That's right.
I'm giving you lots of good, super sleuthing tools that you can use.
This is good. I like that. Thank you very much.
I know what you're doing the rest of your evening.
Yeah, that's what I'm noting myself. Okay, search for this, search for that, just in case. So I guess whoever is watching, you guys should look for your name there, your previous company names and a few competitors if you want.
Yeah, search for competitors. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with searching your competitors.
Public information, right?
Yeah, public information. Yeah. And I mean, if you want to dig deeper on a competitor, you can use CompuMark to do that. If you want to know everything your competitor's filing for, you can have CompuMark set up sort of a monitoring service for just that competitor. So you'll know, if your big competitor is Fruit of the Loom. Have you heard of that company? It's a U.S. company. They make undergarments.
Yes, definitely. The T-shirts.
Yeah. T-shirts and stuff. Let's say that you're in the same industry and you want to know everything they're filing for. You can just monitor Fruit of the Loom's filing. And that kind of lets you know what they might have coming down the pike later on. And that's just some good kind of due diligence, right? Like,
Yeah,
oh,
not to
actually, I
be
don't even
one
know if it's
step
due
behind.
diligence.
Not to be one
Yeah,
step behind. It's good. You go hand in hand. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
step the
So
same. Yeah,
lots of good stuff you can learn on here. So
that's right. Well, thank you so much for sharing that. This was very good. Um, I just wanted to say that I guess we went completely over time from what I expected, because I feel like I just want to interview you forever. You have so much good information that I am very interested in.
we can do
So
it again.
we can do it again if you don't mind. I am very would be pleased to have you again on our Shopkeeper TV. So to whoever is watching, do you have any final tips about searching for trademark and something that they could go away with?
Oh, wow. I think one of my biggest just kind of takeaways I want people to think about is don't underestimate the importance of creating that really strong trademark. Like product selection is important, but always just keep in mind that your brand name is just as important. Please don't overlook it. Like, and don't get a bunch of Scrabble pieces and throw them out on the floor and like come up with a trademark. Like that's do that if you're desperate and in a rush, right? But if you do that, Paulina and I can't like share verbally our amazing experience we have with your product because it's some made up word. You know, just really avoid made up words.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely like the consonant vowel mess. Like I can't, there's a big trend. I feel like kind of in the startup community where like all these software developers like have these really like they think they're really cool, catchy trademarks. But at the end of the day, they're not great from the marketing perspective. And it's really important for people to find that nexus, to find the nexus of a trademark that's strong from the legal perspective and the marketing perspective. So I know that's crazy. I know that seems like a lot. If someone wants to visit my website, it's the Private Label Lawyer, or you can go to trademarkquickstart.com, and I have sort of a bundle there to get people started and thinking about trademark creation. And I have an entire course that goes through this whole process. So I think it's one of the really overlooked parts of building a business and a brand. But it's one of those things that like there's so much bang for your buck with the trademark that it saddens me when people overlook it.
Right. You mentioned this course. I became very curious. Let me just quickly look at it. So is it on your website somewhere, the link to it? You mentioned you have
if you go to Trademark Trailblazer, that's the name of the course. And it's all about
I'm screaming
trademark creation. So, and that's why I love talking about it. And I've been doing this for a long time. So I know a lot of times when I see a trademark, I can tell pretty quickly if a client is going to run into problems with the trademark for any number of reasons. So this course was really developed to proactively help people do this on their own. A lot of times people will outsource the brand name creation to a marketing agency. But the problem with a marketing agency is they're not looking at it from a legal perspective. But then a lot of times lawyers will look at it and they'll be like, oh, well, your strongest trademark is just some coined term. Yeah, that's fine from a legal perspective. You can probably get it registered, but it's not going to fly. It's just not going to be a good marketable trademark. And the other thing I want to say here is that technology is evolving. And like I mentioned a minute ago, technology is evolving and it's a dynamic world of trademarks. Trademarks that existed 10 years ago might not exist now, right?
Right.
Apple, was it the company, did it have the strength that it does now 20 years ago? It didn't, but that's kind of your responsibility as a brand owner, is to work to grow strength in that trademark. And you do that by getting off on a really good start with the trademark. And that's why I did the Trademark Trailblazer.
Thank you so much for everything.
Thank you, Paulina.
So I'll talk to you soon on the next recording that we will do.
Yeah, I'm happy to do it. Let me know. I love talking about trademarks. I'm a big nerd and it's fun. So